Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Of course, it's still the Tuesday morning conversation on Rise and Shine, and we're looking at two strong issues happening in the country, talking about the possible price hike in petrol price in Nigeria as a result of the NNPCL withdrawing as the sole of takers of the commodity from the Dangote refinery, leaving for others to be able to directly interact in the market space. Well, this is supposed to be endorsing the deregulation of the sector. We have an expert joining us this morning who will be having that conversation. We'll also be quickly touching on the crisis happening in Rivers State and the post effect of the elections. Dr. Wisdom Enang joins us this morning, of course, an energy expert and also a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Dr. Wisdom, and good to have you on Rise and Shine.
Hi, good morning, William. Thank you very much.
Good to have you. Francis is also here this morning.
Good morning, Doctor. Good to have
Hi,
you.
good morning. Yeah, good morning, Francis.
Happy New Month. I guess it's the first time I'm speaking with you this month.
Yeah, happy 2 new months.
So let's quickly delve into the two main stories that we want to touch your mind on. NNPCL has withdrawn as the sole off-takers. I mean, initially they were excited about being the only off-takers of the commodity, but now they're saying they are withdrawing, which means that they're taking away a price gap of about 133 naira, which was subsidies made available for retailers buying directly from NNPCL after they've taken. Why did they take this move, and what are the expected effects of this move on the market?
Thank you very much. The move was simply taken because of the financial load on the NNPCL. Recall that when you look at any subsidy, once the presidency, for example, has said there's no subsidy in line with the Petroleum Industry Act, someone is paying for it, and who is paying for it? I'll take your mind back to what happened a couple of months ago. The NNPCL, were asked by the federal government they got approval from the federal government to use part of their profits. Part of the taxes and royalties to the federal government to defray the subsidy payments. So they took that and then were able to use that to clear the pending subsidy payments. But even at that, there's a lot of backlog of subsidy payments that still puts the NNPC in debt. So even when the NNPCL had declared profits, to the tune of 4 trillion naira. First, that profit was quite false in its sense because it did not give a dollar-to-dollar comparison year on year. What it did was to say, this is how much you made in naira, but the naira has become extremely weak. So if you're quoting your wealth in naira, you'll probably be misguided versus if you're quoting it in dollars. That's on one part. On the second part, the NNPCL now, for example, at some point, whenever they declare their profits, the profits are becoming more like a facade or a mirage because those profits do not really exist. You're declaring profit on one hand, and you have this XYZ amount of debt on the other hand. If a combination of both means you're still in debt. So I think at some point, and as well as Nigerians probably did not understand what the monopsony role was going to look like, and what the impact was going to look like. So the NNPCL now has decided to take that off simply because it feels like it is being bombarded with a lot of complaints on every side, being the fall guy for the government from the petroleum sector. And it is feeling that, look, I'm absorbing all of these effects for you guys, and you're still bombarding me. Okay, let me open up the way. Anybody go negotiate with them, and let Nigerians pay whatever they pay. After all, it doesn't favor us from a publicity standpoint. It doesn't also favor us from a financial standpoint because we're absorbing about 133 naira per liter for every Nigerian's consumption. And imagine just one company doing that. So it's on a financial basis. Now I'll just move on to the question you asked, what is the impact? It's very simple. No more subsidies in its actual sense. We'll be paying 1,353 naira roughly per liter for fuel. And that's simple and short. Now, God help us that our exchange rate don't get to 2,000. If not, we pay 1,500 naira per liter. Very simple, very short. Now, is there any sort of maybe hope in sight? If you may ask rhetorically, well, here's what I think. If we are very intentional about our, the way we design our governance implementation systems, we should have some hope in sight. And that is coming from the fact of the Naira, crude for Naira swap. Because I'm going to give you context. Crude for Naira sell, sorry. I'm going to give you context. The NMPCL, had to spend this much, the 133, to breach the gap, because some of the inventories were imported, and even the non-imported inventory, for example, the one that they didn't have to import directly, they still had to pay for a price that will reflect the costs from the Dangote refinery. Because the Dangote refinery, for example, is obviously, importing the September inventory. They imported it from the US. So you see 30% of that whole cost has to do with the shipment, has to do with the insurance, has to do with in-country risk premium on the commodities that you're supplying and the loans that you get on that commodities, or any credit agreement that has to do with that, those commodities. And so what you find is, if we do the crude for Naira deal successfully, we should be able to yank off at least 25 to 30% of our costs associated with importing. It therefore means that whether or not the NMPCL is out, we may be able to still get fuel at, say, 1,000 and not up to 1,353. But if we don't get it right, we'll still, if there's no oversight to make sure that the crude for Naira deal goes well, meaning that the NMPCL satisfies their own side of the bargain and the cascading profits are being given by Dangote refinery or any other refinery to Nigerians, then we will still have pay for hikes in fuel pricing. So if you're asking me on a best case scenario, what do I expect? On the best case scenario, I expect that the price of fuel may stay relatively the same because of the effect of the crude for Naira deal. But that's on the premise that that deal works. If it doesn't work, and the NMPCL pulls off, we're going to pay 1,353. So that was just my broad explanation to let you understand how I come to those conclusions.
Easy question that Nigerians are even bothered about. You've touched on it. Is we have crude for Naira, Naira sale about to be initiated. I mean, reports say October 1st was when it was endorsed to go through. Why wouldn't, that already impact on the sale of the commodities such that the price falls? Because in your projections this morning, you are still staying at the fact that whatever is currently going on in the market, the price is not going to fall below 1,000. Why is that so? Looking at all of these, injections in the crude market in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the first thing that I need to let you understand is the difference between a monopsony deal and a monopoly deal. So here's how a monopsony deal works. The monopsony that was run with the NMPCL and the Dangote refinery, we had the Dangote in the middle, we had the NMPCL in the middle. They were able to tell the Dangote refinery, look, we have the imported alternative. If you do not sell at this price, we will still import, and we have good credit arrangements, and we can go on and take that burden, and then we'll circulate. So the Dangote refinery, by design in that deal, would then be looking at, okay, how well do we make sure that we keep the prices very low? Now, on the flip side, the monopsony, by the way, is where there's a middleman that buys all of the products and then controls the sale to the market. And that works very well in a socialist system where the government is basically looking at creating price interventions for the people. Right, but let's just move away from that and then look at the monopoly system where the Dangote refinery can sell to everybody. So I'll tell you how the monopoly system tends to work. Imagine that there are three companies, company A, company B, company C. Company A comes on and says, look, I have about perhaps 100,000 filling stations and in the country. And I know I've been able to talk to my filling stations, and I'm happy to take off this fuel. I'll be happy to take it up at about 900 and maybe 50 naira. And that's because he has to bid high enough so that he can get the consideration from the Dangote refinery, because it's going to be a kind of first come first serve basis.
Absolutely.
So right, when those guys start bidding, someone wants to have 950, someone says, are you aware that company A bidded 950? Let me bid 952 so that at least the Dangote refinery can consider my own customers and all of that. Another person will say, no, I'll bid 980. I'm selling up in Makurdi, I will still have people that will buy. Another person will say, no, I mean, I can bid 1,002. I will still get people to buy at 1,002. What do you think is going to happen? The price wars are going to push the Dangote refineries profit margin upper and upper and upper, which is characteristic of the monopoly market. Because
trying to say that the NNPCL being inserted as the sole off-taker was actually going to be in favor of the market forces.
Absolutely, but it was going to be in favor, but not in line with the PIA. So it was an interventionist rule, but the PIA wanted a full liberation. But I'm telling you what a fully liberated market would do. Willing buyer, willing seller. And it is a seller's market because the seller owns the product and is the only seller at the moment making the impact. So it's a seller's market. In a seller's market, the buyers will always bid upper and upper, and that means it's not good for Nigerians because the price you pay is not the lowest price you could pay. Rather, it's a price as a result of the bidding war that is going to happen with the various off-takers.
So let's talk about them being the only, what organization now. Remember that in this conversation, we are saying we are going to sell crude to Nigerian refineries in Naira, which, suggests that there are other functional, smaller refineries in the country. Why is all the conversation about Dangote refinery if we have other smaller refineries that can still, provide this commodity no matter what the quantity is? Shouldn't that also have an effect on the competition arising in the sector?
All right, a good question. I mean, I'm going to start from, telling you what an investor looks at when they are about to make an investment. Anybody making an investment or making a projection of their investment is looking at two things, or at least two things. It's looking at the people involved, the idea. It's also looking at the track record of these people. And I think it is important for us to understand that when you look at all of these, you find out that the Dangote is a name that people can go to sleep with because it has a track record over the years. And that's why all the projection is about that. Now, the other thing is about the impact. Can you compare what the Dangote refinery is going to churn out versus you can't compare 25 million liters per day versus what any other refinery is going to churn out. So we're looking at what is going to make the maximum impact. And I'm using that to be the overarching philosophy of our supply equation. So you're right, if we're able to bring up more, but because of the current realities and circumstances, at this moment, we can only use the overarching formula for Nigeria's fuel supply situation has got to be the Dangote refinery, at least in the next immediate future.
Okay, so Doctor, with all that you have said, is there any hope for Nigeria in the nearest future, given the presence of Dangote refinery, all other factors put into consideration? Is there any hope for Nigerians to be able to buy fuel at a cheaper rate anytime soon?
No. I don't believe that. And the reason is this, right? I think we need to look at the policy intent to be able to understand the policy actions. And the policy intent indicates that we are going close to the parity price of fuel, along the West African coast. So in the West African coast, we have fuel coming from all the way from 1.4 all the way to about 1.8. Nigeria is still the cheapest, and I see a concerted effort to try and make sure that we're at parity. I think, sadly, because, for many reasons, sadly, because subsidy, they want to take subsidy out completely, and maybe this was a phasal approach to that. The other thing is, the next thing would be that they obviously want to stop cross-border smuggling, and if the prices are the same, so why would you want to be able to continue your subsidizing your pricing? Hello?
Okay, we are with you. We can hear you clearly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I heard another sound in between, so
okay.
I had to stop. Okay, so basically, to stop cross-border smuggling, the only thing that worries me is this. If you do a sensitivity analysis, you'll find out that the exchange rate is the greatest factor altering our commodity pricing. Because there was a time when the exchange rate was about 750, 800, and I can assure you that at that point there was no subsidy because the exchange rate really drives everything. So if your exchange rate falls further, your fuel would have to go north again, all the way to about 1,005. If the exchange rate, on the other hand, appreciates, the fuel would go up. So there are a number of jokers in the cards. The first joker in the card is the joker for Nigerians to get better. It's for the government to be able to say, look, we are going to do whatever we can to appreciate the exchange rate. That's the first joker in the card. The second joker in the card is the fact that we need to boost up our supply situation. Because no matter how you boost up your supply situation, if your Naira keeps dwindling, everything is going to go. So remember, no matter how much they tell you these guys are going to buy crude in Naira and refine for us, they are still going to be able to benchmark the convertibility of their profit in the dollar, because nobody would want to store that much profit in Naira. So if you're looking at that, they still have to factor in an amount that would be able to give them a relatively stable, exchange rate, sort of dollar equivalents when they are going to get, sell out and get changed to dollars, perhaps to do some, other investments. So, and remember, the money that they used for the investment was gotten in dollars. So whatever they do, they'll benchmark in dollars. So the exchange rate and the supply, crude supply, is exactly what we do need to work on if we have to give Nigerians a chance. But I don't see that happening in the next 6 months.
As we'll still speak to you, but let's quickly join Ugochukwu Okuta, who is joining us from Rivers State this morning. Quite an adverse reaction that we saw with regards to the success of the local government elections that held. But, fire being blazed at certain secretariats is a serious issue. I beg your pardon. Ugochukwu Okuta joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Okuta. Good to have you on Rise and Shine. Okay, want to speak to Mr. Ugochukwu Okuta. Is he available, or we just wrap up the conversation and go to our next conversation? That's Dr. Sami Ajufo, which we have later on in a moment. This is not his conversation. Okay, all right. Okay, so Dr. Wisdom, and let us just wrap up with you. And our question, so we'd like to take your thoughts on the issues happening in Rivers State really quickly.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not really a political analyst, but I try. You see, Rivers State is sort of showing political resilience. That's what I would say. It's I'm talking about the politics. I'm not talking about the development of whatever violence. I condemn that violence. I don't think that that's the way forward. I think we've gone to a point in our democracy where people should have better alternative dispute methods to settle issues. Well, looking at the political play, I'd like to say it's quite inventive because, of course, where the road seems, when option A and B don't seem favorable, you create option C and proceed and prosecute your ambition, and then you can settle and reconcile later on. So that's very important for governance to, I think it's one of those learning, it's one of those learning opportunities for budding politicians or administrators to look at and see how to navigate some of those stormy waters. But for the violence, I think we need to get all hands on deck. The governor, we need to get the traditional institutions, we need to get all the political actors. Let them understand that the greatest losers are going to be the Rivers people, and I think at the end of the day, I would say no one person is more Rivers, a Rivers indigene than the other person. So everybody has equal right to the state, and so they should sit down and look at how to progress the set forward. Politics is over, governance has started. It needs all hands on deck.
All right. Great conversation that we've had with you. We do hope that all hands can actually be on deck to handle the issue going on in Rivers State. Thank you so much for your time, especially delving into the oil and gas issue this morning. We are really praying as Nigerians that we can get back to buying that commodity as affordable as possible. We are the strong proponents of the fact that NNPCL is the main, reason why we are here. I mean, they're the ones literally playing with the price with regards to Forex and other things. But thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom Enang, for coming on Rise and Shine this morning.
Thank you. Deeply appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.